Brains. Brains. Num 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 num.
A few years ago, I made what is probably today the most successful series of videos I've ever been involved in. I made 3 videos charting my top 10 favourite John Carpenter films. You see, while I wouldn't make the argument that Carpenter's the greatest director of all time, he's certainly one of, if not my favourite director, for a variety of different reasons, and I won't bore you with them now. When I made that top 10 video, I caught a lot of flack for the order and even for some of my inclusions. Escape from LA, anyone? But overall, the video received tens of thousands of views, and I caught the YouTube bug and have been posting videos ever since to a variety of different channels. So if you're annoyed by this face, you can blame the success of those videos. Over the years, many of you have sent me your lists of top 10 films that John Carpenter has made and your reasons for each selection. Some of you argued that Carpenter's adaptation of Stephen King's Christine should have been there, or that vampires deserved inclusion, but a small number of you asked a recurring question: what about Starman? This is a question that I largely swerved because the truth of the matter was I hadn't watched it since I was a kid. Even as a child, I remember watching Starman, and while enjoying it, I just never felt compelled to return to it. It's a film that has always seemed to be the awkward sibling amongst Carpenter's filmography, one which doesn't quite fit in with the other films he's made. Having later read accounts of Starman being Carpenter's apology for his dissentient adaptation of The Thing, a film I personally consider a masterpiece, I never felt the motivation to watch Starman as an adult. But in a recent personal reappraisal of his work, I finally sat down and gave it a go. Starman itself was released in 1984. It's a science fiction film surrounding a widow's encounter with an alien creature which has adopted the appearance of her dead husband. The alien is stranded on Earth and must make his way to a rendezvous point to be taken home within a few days or he will die. The widow spends the film emotionally torn between helping the alien home and dealing with the all-consuming grief of her husband's death. Meanwhile, government agents, realizing an alien life form is present on American soil, hunt the creature down with the aim of capturing and studying it, even if captivity results in the alien's death. A story like this could, in normal hands, have become a cheesy B-movie adventure, and even in the very capable hands of John Carpenter, you would have assumed that the science fiction and action elements would have taken centre stage. What makes Starman so peculiar as a Carpenter film is that the emotive struggle of a woman trying to deal with her husband's death is at the very core of what this story is about. This isn't to say that Carpenter never deals with emotion in his work, but the films are normally constructed to be social commentaries or explorations of more negative and less meaningful emotions such as paranoia and fear. You would never think of describing a Carpenter film as a tearjerker. It's just not his style. And when you read, watch, and listen to countless interviews with the great man, you realise that he absolutely comes across as a strong masculine figure who would cringe at unfaltering sentiment. Nevertheless, Starman is one of the most powerfully moving films I've ever watched. Perhaps when I saw it as a kid I wasn't aware of what loss was or even that the film was about grief. I thought it was just a cool story about an alien and continued that belief until I recently watched it again. Shame on me for disregarding it as something so trivial. When we lose someone close to us, we would give anything to just be able to see that person again and talk to them one more time. The widow, played brilliantly by Karen Allen, in a twisted way gets to do just that. She's able to stare into the eyes of her husband and tell him her thoughts and feelings, as if he could hear her from beyond the grave. At the same time, she is able to fall in love again with this man who may look like her dead husband, but is in fact someone else, someone new. She simultaneously learns to let go of her grief, making peace with the death of her husband, and learns to open her heart and love again. There is, of course, more to the film, which elevates Starman almost into a class of its own. Carpenter's consistent use of widescreen photography throughout his career is here once again, however on a slightly different aspect ratio of 2:20, but it is brilliantly explored by the cinematography of Donald M. Morgan. Morgan has worked largely in television since filming Starman, which seems like a little bit of a mystery to me since he did some really great work here. The supporting cast are all excellent, led by the human touch of Charles Martin Smith, playing an agent who is conflicted over whether to capture Starman or let him go free. I've managed to get most of the way through this video without mentioning Jeff Bridges himself too much. Bridges was recognised for his performance at the time, which gained him an Academy nomination, but it can't be stated too strongly that the film is a tour de force on his part. Bridges plays Starman as a combination of childlike curiosity and wonder about the world, as a nervously awkward teenager attempting to find his place with those around him, and as something truly strange yet ancient, with an almost infinite capacity for knowledge and wisdom. Some find his performance too quirky, but I think he's fantastic here. While all of this is true, special mention must be reserved for Jack Nitzsche. He created a score, and especially the main theme, which remains one of the most amazingly moving pieces of music ever written. Played over the climactic scenes of separation, death, and rebirth, Nietzsche's music is tinged with sadness and hope. The sadness that for each of us, life must take away those we love, and the hope that regardless, life marches ever on into the undiscovered country, and the adventure that that may bring. Many detractors have pointed out the similarities between Starman and that other friendly alien visitor, E.T. I don't think there's any doubt that E.T. had a massive effect on the eventual outcome of Starman, but this is by no means a bad thing. E.T. was a film exploring friendship and how children learn to experience loss. Starman, however, is very much a more adult film exploring how we as adults deal with loss, often without the guiding comfort of our parents for solace. It's perhaps a little ironic that Carpenter made a film heavily influenced by E.T. when it was Spielberg's classic which all but consigned Carpenter's most technically proficient film, The Thing, to many years of relative obscurity. Filmgoers at the time were just not ready to watch such a bleak film about an alien life form after the family-friendly sentiment of E.T. While the connection is obviously there, Starman does stand on its own. Both projects were developed at around the same time, with Columbia Pictures actually passing on the E.T. script in favour of Starman. While I personally love Spielberg's story about a little boy dealing with an absent father, befriending an alien which teaches him the true meaning of friendship, Starman is an equally impressive film for very different reasons. Both films end with a beautiful climax, but as I get older and think of those I've lost along the way, it's Starman which resonates with me the most, creating that wonderfully ambivalent feeling of sadness and happiness. So for those who said, what about Starman? Why wasn't it on your top 10 list? You are absolutely right. I would place this film alongside any other within Carpenter's back catalogue, and I really mean that. Starman is what cinema should be about. It's interesting, it's fun, it's light-hearted in places, but it explores a very real and tragic aspect of life, grief, and it does so with reverence, poignancy, and meaning. I'd like to end this video by quoting a fellow YouTuber. This comment was posted on the video for Starman's theme, and it was written by a user called Killer Beers. This is one of those movies I'll watch to make me feel human again. In my line of work, you have to be detached from your feelings. It's this song that haunts me and reminds me that the prospect of life, hope, love, and all things good were attainable through a simple hug and kiss from your parents. I'm almost in tears listening to this. What a rush of emotions and thoughts. Sorry, my bad. I wouldn't apologise, because that's exactly how I feel about this film, and I don't think I could have said it better myself. Good night.